Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, says they move 16 trillion a day and it will be via blockchain, that this is real and banks are working to tokenize all the money. We also are going to explore what would happen and what would XRP's price need to be to support something like $16 trillion a day in money movement. I also wanted to get into the Ripple derivatives conspiracy theory, so now that we are getting a lot of derivatives news, and the liquidity compression flywheel for XRP. What does all of this mean? It means much higher prices in the days to come. Let's unpack and unfold all of this information. I will give it to you play by play.
You know, we moved $16 trillion the other day. In one day, $16 trillion. It goes through our AML systems, our risk systems, sanction systems, fraud systems, OFAC systems. You know, it's cheap, it's fast. So we've always been using technology to do a better job for the client. And we're going to do the same thing in tokenization. So tokenization, blockchain is real. It's been around for quite a while, but now it's becoming more effective, more efficient, because people find ways to do it faster and cheaper, permissioned or not permissioned. Smart contracts, I think, will probably be real. We're working on stablecoin and a JP Morgan. We have a JP Morgan deposit already, and think of it as a token, which is a deposit. We can pay interest on it. And as a payment system and a network, we're involved. If we can use things like that to do something better, faster, cheaper for clients, we're going to.
If we can use something faster, cheaper, more secure for clients, we're going to use it, right? Remember, all of the banks now competing against JP Morgan Chase are at a point where if they don't adopt the same technology that JP Morgan's using, they could lose. And most banks don't have the money and the team that JP Morgan does to put all of these manpower and hours and development into building their own chain and token. And when banks can't develop their own chain and token, what are they forced to do? They're forced to pick up the phone and call Ripple. They're calling Circle. They're calling the infrastructure companies that are already set in place to take full advantage of the technology that they developed over the last decade. Now, I wanted to just show you and give you some rough idea. If XRP was used to move something like $16 trillion a day, what would that look like? Using available XRP, I was just kind of running some models here, but here is what this would look like. Circulating supply, 60 billion, everything not in escrow, including coins sitting in long-term wallets that are not for sale. Available liquid supply is a subset actually sitting on exchanges or in dealer inventories and being recycled in ODL rails. Current best public estimate put it in the low single digit for billions. If you use XRP in this specific system and it turned over 3 to 5 times a day, you would be looking at an XRP price at 5 times a day of $800 per token, 3 times a day, $1,300 per token. And then of course, depending on your variables here, if liquid is tighter, let's say less than 2 billion, you could be looking at 2,600. Now, if the supply of XRP is less than a billion or 500 million, and we start moving $5 to $10 trillion a day, these numbers would obviously need to be much higher. And this is where I think we are heading with XRP's price over time. Coinbase CEO says the best banks are leaning towards stablecoins and seize the opportunity.
Well, in that case, that's just the banks trying to protect their profit margin. They should have to pay reward and higher rates to their own customers. And I think they're trying to put their thumb on the scale of regulatory capture, essentially, to prevent crypto from doing that. But my prediction is actually the banks are going to start, we're already seeing this actually, they're going to be increasingly embracing stablecoins. And my guess is that in a year or two, they'll come back and say, actually, we want to be able to pay interest and yield on stablecoins in our own companies. And so it goes back to that innovator's dilemma situation. I mean, the best banks are leaning into this as an opportunity, and the ones who are fighting it are going to get left behind.
The ones that are fighting it will not be banks. If you cannot adopt the new technology and change with the innovation, you are going to get left behind. And being left behind means you are bankrupt. You are not a bank, because the customers are going to go where they can get the best value for their money, right? The customer has the most power in this situation. If a bank's offering all this extra yield, 24/7, 365 payments, reduce 60 to 90% cost on those payments, and your bank that you're at is not offering any of that, you can make the educated decision of what you're going to do with your money. You're going to go close that account and you're going to go to the bank that's offering you all of the services, because that's what people do, right? We want to feel that our money is being well protected, as well as we are gaining the most for the money that we have. And the only way to do that is to innovate and roll through this new technology. And so Chainlink says tokenization is a $867 trillion opportunity. Only one platform has been adopted by Swift, Euroclear, UBS, MasterCard, and the other leaders empowering this tokenization. Remember, Chainlink is for data and oracles updating data across systems. They are not a settlement token. Chainlink is going to be a vital piece in the days to come, but it isn't the only piece. I just want to make that very, very clear. The market continuously misclassifies XRP. It is not merely a digital asset. It is a candidate settlement primitive for global infrastructure. If XRP accrues value through volatility, but through collateral velocity, repofication capacity, cross-border netting efficiency, and balance sheet compression, then the valuation framework shifts from speculative premium to monetary plumbing multiply. Think like a banker, not a trader. Bitcoin ETH ETFs monetize volatility, and XRP-based settlement layer monetizes flow, FX conversion, sovereign debt tokenization, and intraday liquidity management. Money markets move on finality, not hype. If XRP becomes the neutral bridge for repo, collateral, treasury settlement, and multinational transaction clearing, its price ceiling is not defined by retail speculation, but by global liquidity demand. And that is what we are waiting for here. I'm so like the day that we finally see XRP's price kind of get to a utility point instead of a speculation point, I think a lot of people are going to like be very shocked and surprised on where this can actually go. Because a lot of people look at market caps and say, $1,000 XRP is impossible because it's going to be a $50 trillion market cap. And it's just people don't really understand how all of this dynamics work behind the scenes. And when you have most of this XRP locked up in these certain payment corridors and you have nothing left available on exchanges, the amount of money coming into XRP is going to supercharge a market cap multiplier. Some numbers we might not have even thought of yet. I think it could get real serious pretty quickly here. The Ripple derivatives conspiracy theory of 2018 is starting to look very plausible right now. Is this game set match for Ripple? XRP holders were almost laughed out of the room when they speculated Ripple was aiming at the derivatives market back in 2018. Shout out to Kendra Hill, a lady way ahead of her time. So the current events that are taking shape right now, Binomial, CFTC derivatives, Ripple XRP. The derivatives is a $1 quadrillion market. Ripple quietly became a member of the ISDA, asserting a stake of 1.2 quadrillion derivatives market back in 2023. The verified sources suggest that Ripple and XRP may play a role in payments within the ISDA framework. Just another XRP conspiracy, right? The loop goes full circle. December 2025, Caroline Pham, now acting chair of the CFTC. Binomial launched its first CFTC regulated spot exchange. Ripple led Binomial, Botanical 25 million Series C funding round. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse is on the Binomial's board. Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse and CFTC chair Caroline Pham at Ripple HQ. Binomials are establishing a compliant derivatives market for digital assets such as XRP, Binomial, CFTC derivatives, Ripple, XRP derivatives, $1 quadrillion. And this is kind of what the speculation could be for XRP's price if in fact XRP was used to move a majority of the derivatives market. You can see here that corporate bonds, government bonds, there's all of these different other kind of debt instruments and tools, and XRP can supercharge any of those markets. Now, the XRP derivatives theory ties together several real events: Ripple joining the ISDA, Binomial, CFTC regulated platforms, RLUSD and XRP used in the derivatives, Caroline Pham's role, and then extrapolates them in a narrative that XRP could sit at the center of a multi-$100 trillion or quadrillion dollar derivatives market. These connections are interesting, but highly speculative. Nothing public today guarantees that XRP itself will capture a meaningful slice of the notional global derivatives market, or that it will translate into extreme price targets. So just understand that we look at some of these theories to better understand what could be possible. Nothing is 100%. We cannot say, hey, we know for a fact that this is going to play out, that XRP will be used. We just believe that XRP is well positioned to come in and step in when these systems go from the legacy to the new blockchain rails. So here's what is actually confirmed. Ripple does join the ISDA back in 2023. Binomial and the CFTC regulated derivatives venue has launched leverage retail spot crypto trading and is building a US perpetual futures platform called Botanical. Ripple led by Binomial's roughly $25 million funding round. Caroline Pham, long a CFTC commissioner has now the acting chair has publicly visited Ripple's office and appeared with Brad Garlinghouse at events. So that is what we know, and that is what we can prove. We will keep going here. The liquidity compression flywheel has begun. XRP is quietly becoming the first digital asset with self-reinforcing liquidity engine that combines macro scale inflows with protocol level utility. This is not speculation. This is mechanical. Here is the structure. ETF inflows begin the compression. Regulated ETFs are absorbing XRP at a steady pace and removing it from the liquid float. Once inside these structures, units are rarely sold. They become long-term custody assets, not trading inventory. This is the stage one float reduction. The next stage, stage two here, exchange reserves shrink as ETFs accumulate. The market makers reprice liquidity. Exchange balances trend lower. Less inventory on exchanges means thinner sell walls and higher sensitivity to demand. Price becomes more reactive, more efficient. This is stage two of compression. Now, stage three is RLUSD corridors add real settlement flow. Ripple's regulated stablecoins create predictable on-chain liquidity cycles. RLUSD to XRP to fiat flows generate continuous demand pressures that are unrelated to speculation. Banks and enterprises prefer settlement assets with predictable throughput. This expands structural XRP usage. Stage three of compression. Now, four is ZK identity infrastructure unlocks enterprise level utility. DNA protocol and similar ZK layer allows identity verification, access control, and compliance checks without revealing data. This enables financial institutions to use XRPL for high value flows, full regulatory alignment. Five, institutional custody finalizes the flywheel. When banks, treasurers, and asset managers hold XRP in regulated custody, the circulating float becomes fragmented and permanently reduced. More lock supply means that marginal units must be purchased in thinner markets. This mathematically forces price reevaluation. The macro forces remove supply. The microstructure amplifies slippage. The settlement rails create constant utility. The ZK stack opens enterprise gates. Custody locks the float. Put it together. This is a liquidity compression flywheel. It only spins in one direction. It only ends one way. XRP is becoming the first asset where regulated inflows, collapsing float, and institutional custody and ZK-based utility merge into a single compression cycle. When this flywheel reaches its full speed, price does not rise gradually. It reprices violently. I thought that was good. And of course, Ripple swell, we did see a bunch of things. I did cover that in detail. I think that week we recorded like 30 something videos. It was pretty crazy. They were focused on tokenized assets, stablecoins, cross-border payments, DeFi regulation, digital investments, and humanitarian aid. If you missed that coverage, go back to my channel and look between November 4th through the 6th. And there's a lot of great content and interviews there that I covered in full detail. The jet fuel, RLUSD, let's play it.
Genius Act was just signed into law. That happened on July 18th of 2025. Can you talk about your involvement in bringing that to law?
Yeah, that was a huge push over the last, even into the Biden administration, this idea that we had to have dollar-denominated stable coins. We had to have some regulatory clarity around what you could and couldn't do with them for payment issuers, for payment issued stable coins. And so we have that in Genius. Yes, and I was very involved in that, both with the last Congress and in this one as well. I think it's a critical step. I called this, last time I was on the show, jet fuel for the digital economy, because stable coins really are the way that a lot of the efficiencies are realized in the digital asset ecosystem. And I think you're seeing the reflection of that increased clarity and the increased acceptance of this entire industry in all the different opportunities that we're seeing.
Jet fuel. I love to hear that. And then Michael Arrington said, hey, Brad Garlinghouse, your team is doing an excellent job of failing to mess up. Well done. He said F up, but I know there's sometimes kids listening in the background. I try to watch what I say on this channel. Ripple's RLUSD on Ethereum continues to climb. It's currently at 1.1 billion in market cap. And then RLUSD stablecoin closes in at 1.3 billion in total. Where is RLUSD going to be mid 2026 or the end of 2026? 5 billion, 10 billion, or even more? I will keep you fully updated. Thank you for being here, guys. If you got anything out of this, please let me know down in the comments. You can like the video. You can share it with anybody that you know, whatever it is. Thank you so much for your time. It's always an honor to learn and grow with you every single day. Yes. I'll see you in the next one. Have a fantastic week ahead.